These days, we take for granted precision instruments and systems for the smallest tasks in life, carrying in our pockets processing power hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than it took to put humans on the moon. 300 years ago, astronomers required a high degree of precision to calibrate the telescopes they were using to map out our known universe. They achieved it too. Despite a population of just 20,000 or so, Armagh, with its two cathedrals, is known as the city of saints and scholars. I'm only slightly biased. I got the lion's share of my education over my right shoulder, under the watchful eye of Pat himself. This place has been a centre of education in Ireland since 455 AD, when St Patrick convinced a local chieftain called Dara to let him build a church on the hill known as Ard Maha. By the 7th century there was a monastic school here, and in 1608 one of James I's 5 royal schools. The next logical step would have been a university, and it nearly was. In 1765, a man called Richard Robinson was appointed the Anglican Archbishop of Armagh. This carries with it the primacy of all Ireland and plenty of sway. Archbishop Robinson was very interested in architecture. In fact, John Wesley, head of the Methodist Church, accused the Archbishop of being more interested in buildings than the care of his souls. I can't speak to the truth of that, but his architectural mark on this place is plain to see. Robinson planned to make this the university city that it should have been. His first and only step towards that came in 1789 with the establishment of this observatory. Nonetheless, no expense was spared, and the observatory was supplied with the best equipment of the day. Much of the early work here was concerned with mapping the positions of stars and planets. It had only just about been agreed that the Earth rotates around the Sun. In fact, there still would have been some opposition to the theory of heliocentrism at this stage, albeit fading fast. The location of objects in space can be recorded using a celestial coordinate system known as right ascension and declination. Right ascension gives you a point around the equator, essentially a celestial longitude, and declination gives you a latitude, or the angle between the equator and the star you're trying to look at. The problem is, the Earth is always spinning, and wobbling on its axis on top of that. Your coordinates are given as a time, in hours, minutes, and seconds from the time which they pass a given meridian. That is, the north-south line between the poles. The prime meridian was selected to be Greenwich, and runs through the observatory there. The issue of the Earth's axial tilt is solved using the vernal equinox, the beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere. The time at which the Sun crosses the equator is given as the 0 point for right ascension, and a handy fixed reference point to work from. So what does this mean for our Georgian astronomers? Well, they typically measured right ascension and declination on separate instruments in those days. The observatory was equipped with an Earnshaw regulator, which is a sort of precision pendulum clock, rated for sidereal time, which is the other ingredient in our celestial measurements. It uses the Earth's rotation relative to the fixed positions of the stars rather than the Sun. The Sun provides solar time. The difference is about 4 minutes in a day, with sidereal the shorter of the two. Equipped with a sidereal clock, you'd get your telescope and observe your star or planet as it crossed the meridian, noting the time exactly to an accuracy of 1/10 of a second. This provides the right ascension. This is all well and good, but precision instruments are often prone to wandering out of alignment. The solution was to build or designate meridian marks that could be used to check the alignment of the telescopes. These markers would be on the horizon to be silhouetted against the sky. Cambridge Observatory, for example, was reputedly sited so that the Tower of Grantchester Church could support a meridian mark. Whether or not it was ever used for it is unknown. But we do have a letter from astronomer Ferran Fallows, stationed and having a bad time in the observatory in Cape Town, writing to Professor John Whittaker at Cambridge and asking if Grantchester Church had been feasible, in between complaining about the conditions in South Africa. Armagh Observatory would eventually have 7 meridian marks in total. Different styles were used for different instruments. Armagh was, and technically still is, equipped with a device called a mural circle, which is a wall-mounted instrument to determine declination. The device is aligned perfectly in a north-south direction in its own room in the observatory, with an opening hatch on the roof above to make observations. The open hatch of the mural circle room can be seen in this early photograph. This instrument had its own meridian mark, as did the Troughton Equatorial Telescope. The Equatorial Telescope was an early attempt at combining both the right ascension and declination measurements into one instrument. Its design should also have allowed for measurements at any time, rather than just when the object under observation crossed the meridian, which had been a big problem in Armagh, as the typically cloudy weather meant it had taken weeks or even months to get a clear evening to observe objects. Unfortunately, the Equatorial was never a huge success, with cracks in the supporting structure leaving it unstable. It suffered from stress corrosion in the brass, thought to have been exacerbated by the excessively sulphurous atmosphere in London when it was built. Subsequently, the instrument was difficult to keep in alignment and not generally trusted with determining right ascension. The more traditional mural circle was used instead. This Equatorial had its northern meridian mark alongside the other two in the townland of Tullyard, but with the device proving so unreliable, it was removed by 1850. The southern meridian mark is recorded to have been in the grounds of the Archbishop's Palace, but there is no evidence of it today. Instead, some notes in the logbooks tell us it was likely moved to Ballyherridon, slightly further south, and used as an alternative mark for the transit instrument. The original transit marks at Courtly Hill, we are told, could sometimes be obscured by fog, so the spare equatorial mark was likely employed as a closer backup. It still stands in this field outside the palace domain today. The northern meridian marks survive in their original location today at Tullyard. Rare in England, where the observatory towns have experienced major population growth in the last 200 years. Ireland's population never fully recovered to pre-famine levels, so the ground under these marks was never swallowed by the sprawl. The freestanding arch was the first mark built here, intended for use with the transit instrument. The cast iron obelisk next to it was a later addition, for use with the mural circle. The first 100 years or so of work done by the observatory in Armagh was chiefly concerned with cataloguing the positions of the stars, with ever-increasing accuracy and reliability, at great benefit to the field of astronomy globally. Unfortunately, Armagh never did get its university, but nonetheless, world-class academic research continues to be carried out here. For as long as there's been an observatory here, there's also been a weather station, making it one of the oldest in continual use in the world. In fact, as a claim to fame, the 4-cup anemometer was actually invented here by the Reverend Thomas Romney Robinson in the mid-1800s. While I was at school, I was actually fortunate to get a few days' work experience up here at the observatory and the weather station. It's nice and a privilege, I think, to get to be a small part of the history of these institutions where we can. Don't you think?